yourself. But when was the last time you challenged the structure you're standing in? In our last episode, we talked about discernment, about when noticing when something sounds logical but doesn't sit right. Today, I want to go a layer deeper. Before discernment, before alignment, there's something that happens that is far more subtle, yet very invasive. We begin trusting someone else's guidance more than our own. And most of the time, we don't even notice we've done it. What is it? The slow rewiring of our thoughts to reflect theirs. This is Caffeine Clarity. After that tween skincare event I told you about in the previous episode, I'll link it in if you want to listen to it. My daughter and I were driving home. We were on a main street with 3 lanes. The road had light construction on the left lane and orange traffic cones directing everyone to the right. Imagine this, 3 wide open lanes, bright cones narrowing down into one, everyone merging into that one lane. Cars in front, cars behind. Do you automatically merge? Well, we did. And we drove like that for a bit until I noticed there was no construction ahead. The other 2 lanes completely open. No workers, no equipment, no blocked pavement, just cones. And every single car stayed in that right lane. That's group conformity in real time, people. No announcement, no enforcement, just people matching behavior, including us. And my first thought wasn't, this doesn't make sense. It was, there must be a reason. That's the moment that unsettled me, because the assumption felt logical. There must be something ahead I can't see. There must be context I do not have. They probably know something I don't. That's social proof at work. When enough people move in one direction, we start treating the movement itself as evidence. And before we know it, we trust the setup more than our own eyes. No one told us to stop thinking. No one demanded obedience. The cones were just there, and we complied. Not because we lack intelligence, but because it feels reasonable, because structure feels legitimate. Psychologists call this authority bias. Our tendency to trust what looks official, established, or organized before we verify it for ourselves. We equate longevity to wisdom. We assume popularity is correctness. If everyone else is doing it, there must be a reason. And maybe there is. But how often do we question the cones? Instead, we question the person who changes lanes. We get irritated when someone doesn't merge, not necessarily because they're wrong, but because they disrupted the pattern. So instead of examining the setup, we defend it. And if you're thinking, well, this doesn't apply to me, I question everything, that might be the clearest sign that it does. Because this doesn't just happen on the road. The cones happen to be a good metaphor for how easily we fall in line without being told to. It happens in families, traditions no one remembers choosing, but we just say, well, this is how we do it. That's norm pressure. No one forces you, but stepping outside the pattern feels uncomfortable. It happens in trends. The product everyone suddenly swears by, the mindset everyone repeats, it looks established, so we accept it. And over time, without realizing it, we stop evaluating for ourselves and start moving with the pattern instead. We don't think, I'm giving up my autonomy. We think, maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't want to be difficult. They've been doing this longer. So many people trust it. It must work. It doesn't feel like surrender. It feels cooperative, responsible. Like if you don't lean into it, you're the one in the wrong. And every time we override that first innate question, why are we doing this? Who decided this? When did this become standard? Does this actually apply to me? When we ignore those, we override those, it gets easier to merge without thinking. These patterns aren't character flaws. They're human wiring. And over time, that wiring wears something down. Not our intelligence, but our willingness to use it. Group conformity once kept tribes safe. Authority bias helped us learn quickly. But in modern life, they can keep us in the lanes they choose long after the road is clear. When I decided to pull into the center lane, I didn't do it rebelliously. I did it curiously. I stayed close enough to move back just in case I was wrong. I wanted to see because it didn't make sense. There was nothing ahead. I didn't see any reason for the bottleneck. And it made me wonder, how many areas of my life have I merged simply because the setup was already there? How many times have I assumed there must be a reason instead of checking? And as I looked back in professional settings, I've assumed that the person who'd been there longer automatically knew more. Sometimes that's wisdom. Sometimes that's authority bias again, confusing experience with correctness. In relationships, I've been told that giving up independence is proof of partnership. Well, partnership doesn't mean disappearing. If your individuality is what drew them in, why would dissolving it prove love? Believe me, I can go on, but it's your turn at the table. Where in your life have you stayed in that tight lane because it was already formed? Where have you deferred to someone else's knowledge without verifying it for yourself? Where have you stifled your own evaluation because the structure seemed established? And what would happen if you slightly pulled into another lane, just enough to see? What might you notice? This isn't about rebelling against everything or searching for red flags. It's about evaluation. It's about seeking your truest path and listening to the guidance you already carry. It's rarely the loudest, and more frequently, it starts with just noticing. Leave a comment and tell me one cone you've noticed in your life. Here's your sip of the day. Sometimes the cones are still there, but the construction is long gone. So why are we still following? Before we close, if Caffeine and Clarity has become a steady place for you, something you keep company during your week, there are a few simple ways that you can support this space. You're always welcome to subscribe or leave a comment, even just one sentence about what resonated. It helps this conversation reach someone else who might need it. Those small gestures help more than you know. And if it ever feels aligned, there's also the option to donate or visit the shop and choose something that feels like it belongs with you. But mostly, I'm so very glad you're here and grateful for the way you make room for conversations like this when it's needed the most. Discernment isn't in your face. It's subtle. It's recognizing when you've merged automatically. It's checking whether the reason still applies. And it's remembering you're allowed to step outside the setup. Next week, I want to talk about what happens after that, about transitions, about what it feels like to stand in the in-between. But for now, just notice the cones. See you on the next one.